Hi, everyone. I'm Veronika Vostinak, the Sustainability and Public Works Programs Manager for the City of Half Moon Bay. I'm kicking off this first panel today to talk a little bit about our building electrification ordinance, which just passed its first birthday, and it includes a local end of flow provision. So I want to talk a little bit about what the ordinance that we adopted includes, a little bit about how we got there, and how we see planning for the end of flow in 2045. So first, sorry about that. This is a summary of the ordinance that was adopted almost to the day last year. So it includes all electric new construction with very little exemptions, all of which expire in 2045. We have a requirement for no new gas hookups on existing all-electric residential buildings. So any all-electric residential cannot add gas service, and then also the end of flow provision, which requires that all fuel gas lines be capped or decommissioned no later than January 1st, 2045. And you'll notice I have fuel gas written here and not natural gas, and that's this definition matches the definition in the building code, so that does include propane as well as natural gas. I wanted to talk a little bit about what we considered last year. We had a really robust discussion with both our city council and our community about this ordinance. Half Moon Bay has very little new construction and very little access to public transportation. So our strategies to hit state climate goals or the goals in our climate action plan are really limited. And in order to hit our 2030 goals, we need to address existing buildings in some way. So our city council considered all of these provisions here. The ones in blue are ones that they considered that did not make it to the final ordinance. We had a burnout, so any replacement of a gas appliance needed to be replaced with an electric. We had restrictions on new gas hookups for existing commercial and mixed use buildings. And then our council also considered looking at electrification paths for different types of remodels. So large remodels requiring full electrification of the building, and smaller ones just addressing those appliances that are a part of the remodel. I bring all of this up because it was really important for our council to keep this end of flow piece. They didn't feel politically ready for all of the parts in blue. They didn't feel as though everybody was ready for that type of change, but they wanted to make sure that they were sending a really strong signal that this is where we're going. This has allowed us to have interesting conversations with people who are doing remodels or appliance replacements, and really opening and starting to talk about what this looks like and how to plan for 2045. As far as I know, Half Moon Bay is was the first city in the nation to put this type of requirement in our municipal code, and I know some other cities have considered it, but I'm not aware of any that currently have it codified like we do. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but I did just want to bring up a little bit about the feedback that we heard from the community. Our ordinance went through probably 4 or 5 first readings and 2 second readings, so it was a really extensive process. And these are a high-level overview of the feedback that we heard from people. Anybody who has worked on electrification policy are probably pretty familiar with all of these concerns, but the 2 biggest that we heard was both the cost of implementation and the reliability of the electric grid. So focusing very specifically on our end of flow provision, this is the text that's in our language, this is the text that's in our ordinance. It states that no later than January 1st, 2045, all buildings within Half Moon Bay shall be all electric buildings or all electric conversions, and all fuel gas plumbing lines must be capped and or decommissioned. And I do have some definitions for all electric buildings and all electric conversions for those who are interested. There's really 2 pathways that I see here moving towards 2045. The first is capping the lines. So capping the lines is focused on those individual connections to buildings. And Half Moon Bay is a pretty small city. We don't have a lot of resources, so I see all of this happening in collaboration with other entities, whether that be Peninsula Clean Energy, our CCA, county, San Mateo County Office of Sustainability, other cities, BayREN, other organizations that are looking at these goals, at achieving these goals like Half Moon Bay is. there's a lot of programs that I think will help with this, but I've put the top 4 that I think will be most impactful to our community. The first being rebates, incentives, and financing, technical assistance and planning, making sure that people know what to ask for when a contractor comes to their house, making sure they're not upgrading their panels unnecessarily and making decisions that make sense for the long term. Looking at appliance loaner programs for emergencies to make sure that people are not left without hot water and heat while these upgrades are happening. And then also workforce training. And I see workforce training as twofold. One being making sure that our contractors that are out there on the field now understand what this takes and how to help lead their customers towards this 2045 date. And then I also see training new workers. We know that right now we don't have enough contractors, and we need to make sure that we really bump up that that stock so that we're able to do this work. I think it's also an opportunity to address equity and have and make sure that we're creating high-paying, high-roads jobs. The other path that I see and the focus of today is decommissioning. So looking at that neighborhood-wide service. There's a couple ways that I see the city participating in that. The first is identifying voluntary participants. I know that's happening in some other cities right now. This can be a little bit difficult. You have to try to figure out, where's a group of people in an advantageous area that are willing to electrify their homes. The second would be to seek and advocate for funding for disadvantaged communities to make this change. I'm not currently aware of any grants or funding available for this, but I think as government staff or as advocates, we need to make sure that we're speaking out to granting agencies and advocating for this type of funding so that we can do this work and ensure that our disadvantaged and low-income communities are not stranded with gas appliances once it becomes more economical to switch to the electric appliances, especially as gas rates begin to increase. And last, gas line replacements or repairs. Are there opportunities to decommission the lines at that point? This will need to happen in conjunction with PG&E. We've started those conversations a little bit, and I know some of the speakers after me will be talking about this in a little more detail. But I see the role as local government to help try to answer the question of PG&E's legal obligation to serve. So is there something that the city can do, whether that be a zoning change or a council declaration, to require that areas move to all electric? And how does that interact with some of the funding that may be available from the repair for the line or even other agencies? So that's what I have for you today. I'm happy to answer any questions either as a part of this forum or outside. I know that we went through this process and it's not a lot of people are looking to go down this road, and I'm very happy to share what I've learned along the way and help make it even better policy.